Folks, welcome to our third meeting of the Data Literacy Consortium user group. If you are focusing on data literacy in any way, you are definitely on a journey. And this is an effort for us to join pathways on all of our journeys in learning about and understanding data literacy, if I can even say it. So with that, I'd want to give a big hello and shout out to my Data Literacy Consortium partners. Heather, you want to come off mute really quick and say hello?
Oh, there we go. Technical difficulties. I love it. My name is Heather Leeson. I'm Data Literacy Lead at the International Federation of the Red Cross Red Crescent Societies. We have 191 national societies and 13 million volunteers. How can we be data ready? So we worked with Dirk last year to create the data playbook with hundreds of volunteers. And what we found was we weren't the only organization in the same pickle. How do we get there? How do we help each other? And that's why we convene these calls. And I'm just really thankful for Dirk for handling all the tech and for all of you being here, and also our other partners too, our friends over at the Center for Humanitarian Data.
Yes, and the Center for Humanitarian Data is in the house. Lisa and Caitlin, do you want to come off mute and say hello, both of you?
Hi. Yeah, happy to see people are still excited to have this conversation. As Dirk and Heather said, Lisa and I are working for the Center for Humanitarian Data, which is part of the information management branch of UN OCHA. And yeah, so we are in the process of kind of designing the data literacy program, both for OCHA, but also for the humanitarian sector, trying to contribute to resources and things like that. So happy to listen to others, hear what's working, what's not, and really excited about this conversation.
Cool. Lisa, do you want to just give a quick hello?
Hi, I think Caitlin covered it all. Lisa Peterson, so also a co-lead for the data literacy work at the Center for Humanitarian Data. And yeah, just very interested in scaling data culture. It's very much with what Caitlin and I have been talking about lately, and reading lots of articles on it from the private sector, and just interested to hear what everybody has to say and what's going to be presented. Thanks.
Thanks,
Great.
Lisa and Caitlin. Just a very quick sound check. Somebody noted their sound was breaking. If you could just put that in the notes if the sound's working for you, we'll go on and see if we can troubleshoot that. Thanks.
Great. And also just to note, the sound is working for me and I'm doing the recording, so I'm quite happy with that, but I will also take extra care. And also, just for everyone to know, my name's Dirk. I am the Fab Writer in Fab Writers. I've run a consultancy that focuses on capacity building for technology and data, and social learning and network building are two things that I focus in a lot, and the Data Consortium fits neatly into that. And so I'm quite happy to be a part of this party. And so with that, today what we're talking about is scaling data culture. This is building off of the last one that we did, which was on building a data culture. And so we are ever so grateful to have Global Affairs Canada, represented by Brian and Delphine, to tell us about how scaling data culture has worked within their, shall I call it, institution. And so want to now hand the floor over to them for both of you to say hello and take us away on scaling data culture.
Okay, I don't know if Brian is here. I can see him. Okay, Delphine Honea. I work for Global Affairs Canada in the Results and Delivery Unit. We have a data strategy, and I'm the senior advisor for working under Brian. Brian has a little team working on this strategy, and I joined very recently. So I think Brian will do most of the talking, but I'll be checking the chat and answering questions as well.
Great.
And
Go.
so
Yeah.
I am here, Delphine. I can see you.
Couldn't see you.
And Delphine sits just an office away from me, so she can almost hear me through the wall. And our team, with her new arrival, has got new insights coming at us that we weren't expecting, and things that are helping us. So there's always strengths from the people that are coming in, taking a stale strategy forward. What I'm doing in my job, and it's not stale, I'll tell you about all the exciting things we're doing in a minute. But what I'm doing in my job is just Deputy Director of the Results and Delivery Unit. And my team has been assigned responsibility for developing a departmental data strategy for Global Affairs Canada that covers the 3 ministers of Foreign Affairs, Trade, and Development. And we'll talk more about all the things we're doing. So that's my hello. And I know, Heather, you had some questions that you wanted us to be touching on in short, but do you want us to just walk through the presentation?
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
Okay, good. So as you've seen on the screen, we'll move ahead, but scaling data culture is what we thought would be helpful to talk about based on some experience that we've had within global affairs. And I guess the starting point for us in this conversation, given the connection to Heather, is that at a certain point, we were in the process of developing our strategy, and I attended an event that Heather was speaking at. And I was very inspired by the work she was doing because she was a few steps ahead of us in a direction that we were trying to go into, and I didn't see any other examples out there. I was having a hard time finding examples of people doing the things that we were trying to do. And there was Heather that had not only done it, but had developed a playbook on how to do it that was very willing to share those things. So that helped us along a lot. And we're happy to be sharing back our little piece and to have been able to continue over recent time to be in ongoing discussions with Heather and all of those that are you here. I think it's a great thing to be in the field of work that we are and learning from each other, because there's so much that we haven't discovered yet and so many new things that we'll be able to do, but sometimes hearing that others are doing them is the first way to kind of leapfrog beyond our the things that we've been doing. So just briefly about our, from a scaling perspective, we started by a mandate. The mandate came not something that we wanted or didn't want to do, but it came from outside. It was a mandate from the government, the center part of the government of Canada, which was our Privy Council office. That's the Prime Minister's department, basically. And as part of the results and delivery agenda that my team runs for our department, it's a government-wide agenda. The importance of data and evidence-based decision-making was placed at the top of the kind of the objective in building better transparency and engagement with the public, open government, fostering better informed decisions by more information. So all departments were mandated to develop data strategies. Some departments were very good at using data, some weren't, some were in between. Global Affairs Canada has some parts that are much better at using data and some parts that are not as experienced at it. So we're doing a cross-departmental effort that looks beyond just the core mandate of results and delivery. It looks at how do all parts of global affairs function and how do they use data to do that. So at the very beginning, we established a core team of just a few people, one deputy director to kind of lead a team that would go out and build the agenda. That team has transmogrified a bit, but it's usually been a few people, and one of those people have been responsible for outreach and engagement. Another person has been primarily responsible for awareness raising or communication. We're looking at having a little bit more of a engagement / training connection, although not too much on the training, more capacity building. And what we are light on right now is having data scientists or data strategists to actually help do some of the kind of heavier lifting. So where we are in our team right now is a kind of a transitory thing. In the last year, basically, we've done an assessment of the department, where everybody is on data, depending on the makeup of the department, but there's different parts of it. And I'll tell you about those briefly. And then, or Delphine might even. As of September of last year, our strategy was approved by the Deputy Minister, and we began working with a broader team, as the slide has just very timely switched. So our Deputy Minister approved the strategy. We had previously consulted with the Executive Committee of the department. After a fairly detailed discussion at a high level with all the Assistant Deputy Ministers in the department, the Deputy Minister subsequently approved the plan. And now we're working with a team of 5 different teams from around the department that are responsible for have different mandates. We're bringing them all together on a regular basis so that we're all feeding into a bigger picture. And those streams are showing on your screen as well. The first stream is a culture stream. which is all about building awareness, capacity, willingness to use data, and ensuring that everybody actually is using data, applying data as evidence to support decisions in their work, whatever they're doing, whether they're supporting client services, whether they're supporting Canada's network of missions, embassies, etc., or if they're doing political, trade, or consular work, humanitarian development, the whole range of activities. These groups are set up to support across the board the department. And the assistant deputy ministers and deputy ministers from a senior management perspective had said, we're all committed to doing this, which has made our work very easy in a sense. There's more kind of desire to have it happen. But that high level engagement in terms of scaling has been a key thing for us, because where we have a small core team, we wouldn't get the traction across the department with the other, either the other pillars, the access and analytics pillar that does tools, or the people pillar that does human resources and training, a performance pillar that does results, making sure that we're using results data to support high level things across the department and in our narrower individual units, and a management and governance team that look at key issues about do we have the right structures, do we have the right data quality processes in place to ensure that. So all those pillars come together because of the mandate that was given to us by senior management. And it makes my little core team much stronger in a sense, because people are coming, they're volunteering to help in a sense. They're not being told to, and they would otherwise probably run away and say, we don't want anything to do with your data team. We have all kinds of other work to do. Some will look at us and say, that's fantastic, we need all the support you can give us. Others are a little less enthusiastic. So that's part of the cultural buildup, and something we've seen from Heather. So moving on to the next layer slide. Internal stakeholders, that's where we've looked at doing a lot more outreach. After we had a mandate from the deputy minister and the discussion with the assistant deputy ministers, in that discussion, all of the assistant deputy ministers were instructed by the deputy minister, who's basically the head of because there are 3 ministers at Global Affairs Canada. There are 3 deputy ministers, but there's one of them that's senior in the sense that he's has the lead on the department as a whole. He doesn't lead on trade or international assistance issues, or she. Finally, we have our first one ever as of about a month ago. So this deputy minister mandated for the whole department that we would do this, and then also mandated that each of the assistant deputy ministers would develop their own data plans. Because of that, there's engagement across the department at a senior level that are getting everybody kind of looking at their own data issues. How are they using it? Do they have the right staff, training, tools across the board? They're paying attention to it. So that has helped us a lot as we scale. Had it not been for a deputy minister mandating all senior managers to do something, our message wouldn't fall on the same ears, but because it's coming from above. So we're kind of building a top-down, bottom-up approach at the same time, and having the top-down has been very helpful in a very hierarchical and formal culture like a foreign ministry. That's kind of essential. The other parts of, just as I'll talk briefly about how we've kind of reached out within our department. Once we had the mandate and the strategy approved, we looked at who are the other main communities of the department, and I think that's something that any organization would do if we're trying to build awareness or culture or literacy, scale our use of data across the organization. Who are we? So we certainly have those 25 branches / bureaus. There's a few different versions of those. And then we have what we call streams. There's typically 4, sometimes 5, depending on how we look at it. But the main ones, the first 3 are consistent with the 3 ministers of our department. So a foreign affairs stream, an international trade stream, and international assistance or development. But we also have consular services, emergency management, and of course there's corporate or internal services that support our mission network and all the internal functions that we have. And finally, we have, this is something that's linked to a number of other governments for sure, foreign ministries or global ministries, but also international organizations and similar structures like the IFRC. There's a headquarters located somewhere in the world, and then there are satellite offices all around the world. So our system of Canadian 178 embassies, high commissions, and consulates around the world, some shared with some other countries, located in 110 countries, but in some places we have offices that link with other countries, Commonwealth countries primarily, and so that's all part of our structure as we reach out. And what we've been focusing on now is building engagement of the streams and building engagement of the missions, because that's a very kind of early, we're in the early phase of the strategy, and also focusing on a wider network, and Delphine will tell you about that. Except
Delphine.
she's on, I think she's on.
Sorry for this. So for the year 2 that we're starting right now, we're putting the emphasis on really widening the network. We've already started engaging with actors across the government of Canada, but we will continue engaging further. Recently, we had people from our Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development telling us about the International Panel on Artificial Intelligence, for instance. We are engaged with the Canada School of Public Service, which is developing a whole series of training for different levels of data science skills. So, and this is for across the government. So all kinds of engagement like this across the government. But also we want to continue engaging with NGOs, other governments. We haven't talked to many other governments yet, so we want to work on this. And intergovernmental organizations, academia, the private sector, and it's external organization, external to the government of Canada, but it can be also within Canada with other levels of government, like the provincial government. And when we engage with those organizations, we also try to think of our desire to help certain streams that are maybe a bit lagging behind. I think Ryan mentioned that some areas of the department have started doing quite a lot on data, and others are lagging a bit behind. So we will try to help them by engaging with people who may do work that they could do here as well. So that's the idea. Brian, did you want to add anything on this?
No, that's good. But for sure, I would also look at this from a management perspective and scaling the organization. There's so much effort that we could put in this area, so much that we could learn from others. We have to be selective about who we engage with and how, but we'd love to be doing it more and more. And just the very fact that this consortium has been set up is a great way to kind of streamline. We can learn in a kind of a central place. One thing we've seen within the Government of Canada is because all departments are taking a similar effort, but they're all in different places. Same thing we'd see with international actors as well. We're all in different places. Having some common places for sharing our experiences is something that we're trying to build better within the Government of Canada, and we're seeing that the consortium is actually helping to do this at on another level. So that's is a great resource, and thanks to you for setting it up, Heather and Dirk.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you. So thanks, Delphine and Brian. I really appreciate your transparency and sharing just what your journey's been like. I appreciated as well your story around like finding someone who's actually working on that and then trying to find a way to collaborate with them or at least learn from them. And I feel the same way about the Center for Humanitarian Data. Before Caitlin and Lisa joined, I was working with their colleagues, Sarah and Javier, because in the humanitarian space, finding those allies who have similar questions or problems was a thing for me when I started. In addition, I saw that Raul from MIT joined, and so with the Data Culture Project, and I reached out to them, him and Catherine, about what they were doing. And so it's really, this idea around how can organizations learn from each other is important. So I just wanted to say that, that's why we're here, and that's why, I'm glad that Dirk is here to help us convene and do that. So I guess I have a couple of comments first. I think what's interesting is that we created an artifact at IFRC with national societies and in some part and partial with the Center for Humanitarian Data to pilot what is a data culture. Now we're going back as an organization, and we're working on our strategy 2030, which means like for the Red Cross, Red Crescent societies, this is a big year. We're planning on how we might have an overall strategy around digital and data. So we're actually going back and building out the strategy for that. So we're doing the reverse of what you guys are doing. And so I think that's really interesting. I guess my key question for you is, for Delphine and for Brian, is when you're working on that kind of longer term engagement strategy, what tips do you have for other organizations? Because I think we're all very diverse organizations here, but we're all in that boat around how do we, like you mentioned, like find your early actors, get management approval, but what are some of the other tactics you use to try and build, get the strategy in place and get it operational?
That's a great question. Delphine, do you want to take a first crack at it and then I'll follow, or do you want me to go first?
Go ahead. If you have,
okay.
Nope.
So one thing I think that we've done to build engagement or across the board, definitely, and it's something that Heather, that you've described doing as well, but it's finding those that are the kind of data literate, data savvy, the great users, the best practices, working with them to identify if there's anything that they need that we can be putting into our kind of broad departmental strategic approach, and promoting their work, shining a spotlight in a sense on their work so that others are able to see it. Those kind of leaders in a sense have their own frustrations, like the tools are bad or data quality can be bad. So they need a different type of support. At the same side, it's all the people that aren't sure what they could do with data in their jobs, that we're finding some kind of responsiveness from them. It takes more time, it takes a different type of focus or effort, but it's the conversations that you'll have between those that know a lot about what to do with data and those that know a lot about what they're trying to do but don't think about the connections of data to what they're trying to do. So you could be trying to do, within our department, I guess, where we see some of the biggest challenges are different, but the international assistance stream uses data for a lot of things, but they've got inconsistencies in a lot of places, so it's difficult for them to roll up some of the stories. At the project level, they've got thousands upon thousands of indicators that they're now streamlining, so tracking certain types of data is difficult for them. The trade stream has done a lot more with data in the last 10 years because they were challenged kind of existentially. Why are you doing, show us the value that you have, and they had no data. And they realized that they needed to have data to tell that story, and so they've become much better. Consular services right now is actually doing a fantastic job at they've developed much better data quality, and they're using it to inform decision making about where we put consular services at different times. There are seasons of the year where you'll see some things increase from weather related for sure, but there are other variables that we'll see numbers of cases of consular types of situations that are gradiated. They're able to see now on a global scale where anything is, how many are happening in Southeast Asia, how many are happening in Africa. So they've got much better situational awareness of their global map, and they're able to take management decisions on how to apply our resources or what policies we might need to be thinking about. So that's been and they've got lots more work to do, but they're leading in another way. And I guess finally, our foreign affairs or foreign policy and diplomacy service, they are the ones that do more work with narratives and, in a sense, thought-based negotiation, trying to persuade other international actors to come together, convening in some ways, as I mentioned earlier, Heather, that convener role, helping to develop collective decisions on global issues where we all have a stake in them. They haven't spent much time thinking about how data can help that. And they're starting to, and we're starting to see, okay, if we could put some trade data together with some foreign affairs data, with some international assistance data, working on the SDGs, but taking another step beyond that, that's where we're going to start to see some gains as that community grows. So that's, I guess, just to, I don't know if that totally answers your question, Heather, but it touches on some of how some of the progress we've seen that's been helpful from different parts of our department.
No, I think it's great, and I think that data scramble and getting curious about how might we use different data sets together is something that Caitlin and I spent some years on of our lives. Over to Dirk. Thanks for that.
Folks, I just want to point out that one of our main goals for doing these meetings is to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to have their questions answered. So it would be great if anybody has questions for Brian and Delphine. We would love it if you ask them, and you can do that two ways. One, you can raise your hand via the little prompt below the participant list. Or if you prefer, you can also type your question into the chat room below. So please, if anyone has a question, please let us know within the next minute or so. Also want to just point out that, well, one, just say thank you so much to you guys. But we will be continuing these kinds of activities, including the Open Government Partnership Unconference, where Brian and Delphine, are you both going to be there, or Delphine, are you? I know one of you at least is going to be there.
I will be there, and I hope Brian as well.
Great.
I'm scheduled to be there, and I'm trying to keep fighting to keep my schedule free so that I can be there.
And please do keep that fight up. And if you need any help from me in doing that fight, please feel free to call on me, because I'm looking forward to having you both there. But are there any questions? Let me know who needs talking to. Anyways, anybody have a question, comment that they'd like to share on sharing data culture? We'd love to hear from you.
Maybe I can mention something, Brian. In 2 weeks' time, we are organizing a data day actually at Global Affairs. So we have a full day of activities to try to engage with people, and that includes people in missions. So certain activities will be done online, and people will be able to connect. We have a keynote speaker coming, and so we're also trying to be in people's face, right? But of course, it's also great to have and management, senior management is behind us and pushing us to organize activities like this. So
yeah. Questions, folks, comments for our friends from Global Affairs Canada?
Barring any questions, I can elaborate a little bit on one of the points that Delphine, the day-to-day, in a sense, puts the cap on a major focus that we've had. And that major focus, I mentioned earlier how our deputy minister approved, and there was a discussion with assistant deputy ministers. One of the priorities at the time that the strategy was approved from the deputy minister in discussion about how we'd implement it would be focus on building a data culture, focus on building awareness. We talked about, can you measure developing a data culture? And it was basically considered that, sure, you could try, but it may not be that great anyways, and probably may not be worth the effort. Therefore, focus instead on data use. So measure increase in data use, which isn't easy either, but as we go around the department encouraging effort, we're saying in the end, let's get towards data use to support the different functions that we have. But in the beginning, we're focusing, for those that are kind of new to it, we're starting at the base level of basically 3 steps. One is build awareness and understanding of data and how it can apply. Then moving on to the next step, it would be building, in a sense, a willingness or capacity or a desire to use data. And then finally, once they're aware and they understand how to do it, then and they have the tools and the capacity, the desire is there, we would then move into the 3rd stage, which is action, which is the use. How are you all across the department, we all have across different organizations, we all have different mandates, or within organizations, different sub-mandates. And the question that we're putting to ourselves across the board is, how are we using data to support the objectives we're trying to achieve? It's not about the data, it's about the objectives we have, but how can data make us better, give us better situational awareness, help better inform our decisions, better understand the impact of our decisions and our efforts. That's kind of how we're scaling up, in a sense, the going from a low culture awareness into use over 5 years. So this is a strategy that we're just, as I said, capping off the 1st year. We've spent a year now, almost a year since the strategy was kind of pre-approved. Last summer it was approved, and so we've spent the year doing the early, kind of getting the low-hanging fruit. And now we're going to move into a 2nd and 3rd year, which we'll have to go a lot farther beyond awareness and get more into a lot more engagement activities. To see an increase, we'll see an increase in time over use. Not even sure exactly how we're going to measure the use either, because we can measure random use, but it's hard to measure that across the board. So if anybody has ideas on how to measure data use across an organization, we'd love to hear them.
That's very cool. And hopefully, yeah, and things that we want to continue to share. So one of the things that you guys have noted in your example and from the start off is how you have learned from other organizations and institutions. And just so you know, I'm actually giving us a segue into the next section, so we can get all of our business done before the top of the hour. So Brian and Delphine, just stick around. We're gonna do small group breakouts and then talk about the next steps for the consortium for the rest of the call.
Sorry to interject. I think Emma from Action has a question before we just move on. I just want to give her a chance to ask her question.
Oh, cool.
She couldn't
Yes.
raise her hand, so I just wanted to give her that spot. Thanks, Emma. Good to hear that you're here.
Hi guys, sorry, I fell down a hole of trying to find out how to put my hand up and failed to, so put it in there. Sorry to stop the flow. Thank you, that was fascinating. I had a question around when we're working with partners on data readiness, because we're a mapping organization, often we use the map as the hook to say to people, okay, what decision are you making, or which product, which map do you want to get out at various points? And then we track back to say, okay, so if you want to make this mapped product, then these are the data sets that you would need to have, and then we can look at storage and processing and all the other issues that go with it. And I wondered how you did that from your end, how you went through that process of sort of assessing data priorities. And we are often dealing with partners who are, you know, it's very new to them and they're very happy making decisions with the level of information that they have perhaps. And so they might see a need for maps, but they don't necessarily see the difference between a map and then the data that feeds it. And that's in our experience, which is a much narrower bracket than yours, I think. I just wondered if you had any tips and tricks around how you approach that conversation with people and sort of assess those data priorities, or how your process looks, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. I would say that mapping would be something that we've envisioned getting more into. We are kind of mapping, but it's not, it's harder to share because we haven't visually mapped it for people. So at the more basic level of what we're doing, it is definitely conversations. Before framing the strategy, we did conversations across the department with everybody we thought would be relevant. To kind of do an assessment of where we were, kind of a needs assessment, or establish the initial situational awareness of where are we as an organization. We had an outside organization, private sector, come in to do a review for us. They helped us to confirm which areas, you know, the different layers or different elements of our strategy. But then really, as we've been working on implementing, we've gone back to all the parts of the department and had focused discussions where we kind of frame a discussion around the 5 streams of our departmental strategies or pillars. And then we ask them, because many of them have done their own data plans, we then just have a kind of a collaborative discussion about where they are on each of the elements of their internal plan, with a view, and we've got a broader team with us that kind of the leads for each pillar across the department come to a meeting with each of the branches of the department, and that then turns into a kind of a high-level discussion and a more technical discussion in some cases to say, okay, you need training or you need tools. And so then they have follow-on discussions with the tool team or the training team or what have you. So that has helped us to understand the readiness. It's helped us to understand what the needs are of different parts of the department and where the best practices are that maybe should be shared. And that's, I guess, one of the things that is probably key, is the more of those conversations you have, the more you understand about the readiness of different parts. And then you can almost start to match, like a matchmaking function, to say, okay, these guys have done this learning, you need to absorb this learning. And that would be the next, then you have to have a better understanding of the map in a sense, which is, I see that the next few steps you should take are the following. And here would be the few actors that have taken those steps right before you. There's a question of timing of an intervention of some kind of support, capacity support building. So I think we probably need better data on how to do that, frankly, because we're sort of just winging it as we go at that level.
We are all just winging it as we go, Brian. That's the thing. We're here to learn. Lovely. Dirk?
Good question. Thank you, Emma.
So keep them coming. Keep filling that out. That is really going to be helpful for us in the future.
Yeah, and we put it in the wrong place. So good. Thanks, everybody. Maybe while you're doing that, we can just do some quick report backs while people are typing it in. Would that help, Dirk?
Yeah.
Okay. Emma, tell us, what common ground did you find for us?
So we were talking about the need and shared benchmarks and measurements around data readiness and quality. So how might we share tools or abilities to assess readiness and quality? And I was really excited to hear some of the projects that IFRC are working on there. And I was thinking about what Map Action could potentially do to support this consortium and the areas that we might hopefully bring support in. And that's really GIS and how best, if a partner is looking to visualize data in mapping, then how's the best way to store or process that data to link it to mapping, either for a GIS professional or for an automated system.
Great. Can we put anyone else on the spot? Let me see, Elizabeth. It looks like you guys have a good list there. Can I put you on the spot and ask you to come off mute and tell us about your small group?
Sure. Let me take a gander at the list real quick. I think one of the last topics that we were discussing was the softer side of the change management component of creating a data culture. It'd be helpful to also bounce ideas within the consortium about how that's working.
Great.
Lisa, is there anything we can add as a group?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, we were just talking about change management strategies and how people are going about, rolling out data cultures and making them stick and having them embraced, I guess, and within organizations.
Great.
But also maybe beneficiaries would be my my request, since we'd be collecting data from them potentially. So
I like to say collecting data with them, right?
With them, yes.
That way that changes the power dynamic. It's hard, but we're getting there.
Okay, great.
Great. Also, just if I can hear from Rahul, Matt, or Bob from your discussion. It looks like you got a really good list there. Let me put Matt on the spot.
I knew you were going to do that.
Hey, Matt.
Hiya. Yeah, Matt, it was mostly around, actually, it's just great to be able to sort of connect to new people, new organizations, talk to people or sharing the problems and challenges we all have with data literacy. Looking at where there are overlaps or even gaps in challenges and things that are there, and just bouncing off new crazy ideas, seeing if they work or don't work, and just lessons learned from that sort of thing.
Great, that's super helpful. So folks, Caitlin and Vanessa. Vanessa, do you want to tell us a little bit about your conversation before we move on? And has Vanessa gone?
So I was in a room with Caitlin, and we basically talked about a lot of the things that other people talked about, creating a kind of a thought community, sharing experiences. And then Caitlin had this really interesting comment about how it's difficult to know when a pre-existing resource will fit for your organization, and then how to kind of do the cost-benefit analysis of adjusting that to meet your current needs. And obviously she can speak much more eloquently about that, but it was a great little mini conversation.
Great. That was super helpful. I think I got all of the groups that have typed in there. So we are extra thankful for those report backs, and also the fact that you had them. And that's actually what the consortium is all about. Heather, before we move on to sort of what's next, I realized that I skipped the sort of like, what is the consortium? But I think we have done a really good job here of getting people to tell us what the consortium is, which I certainly appreciate.
Yeah, so I think, you know, we had some conversations with our friends at the Center for Humanitarian Data and then Dirk. And we had a little bit of a brainstorm last summer about like getting people asking us to help their organizations. And well, I have a large organization, much like David, like Brian and Delphine and Caitlin and Lisa do. But we do need a practitioner's place, right? And I think that what Rahul and Catherine did with the MIT Media Lab was one of those practitioner places. But I think that, you know, this seems like a partnership in that realm of a place where we can co-create content, share best practices, and then, you know, see what else innovations could be needed, right, in order to help go forward. Those are kind of the three things that we said. We also talked about events. And we're kind of defaulting right now to online events. We promised ourselves that we would do 6 of these, 3 this in the spring and then 3 in the fall, just to kind of dig into this before anybody invested any money or any further heavy time into a consortium, because networks sometimes come and go, right? And some of us have been part of those networks. So I guess the idea is it valuable? And we'll have these conversations with each other about what we can offer each other, and then think about what else we can do together. And so we have a little bit of a terms of reference that we wrote out. So maybe when we send out the follow-up to the call, and there's a lot of people who subscribe to the call, while we only have a few people on this call today, there's 50 people who registered, so they're going to want to give input afterwards. So I was thinking that we would give them what we talked about today, and then the draft terms of reference of what we thought the Data Literacy Consortium could be, make it an open document, and have people keep on editing for what they want from this and then what they can offer. With Javier from the Center for Humanitarian Data at Humanitarian Network Partnerships Week, we ran a session around what skills do people have and what can they offer to a data literacy group. And I really believe, I'm really thankful for the Canadian government to join us, for Brian and Delphine, because I feel that we're not the only people with this question. And I feel like, well, we're focused on, like, I'm focused on humanitarians, and you know, we are interested in that kind of realm of humanitarian diplomacy development, and then other organizations. And I think our friends at Rahul Data Culture Project, they're dealing with lots of other smaller NGOs, and as is Dirk. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to help those NGOs become data ready too. And so with that, I guess my ask is, if we share a document, can you keep thinking about what a consortium can do for you and how you can build and co-create it with us? That would be my only kind of next step. Dirk? Caitlin?
I just want to point out well, I want to also, there's a couple things I want to point out in the Google Doc, which I think will help keep this rolling. But we started a thing called resources from this meeting. And one of the things that I've put in there is a blog about a data culture workshop that 360 Giving did. And one of the things that I noted really strongly in that is this thing about building a data culture is building a learning culture, and riffing on that. So I want to invite other people, if you have anything related to share, put that in there. And I think that is the sort of thing we want to continue to be able to do, is you know, what resources do we actually find helpful, and what are the contexts in there for doing it. And I think, given that it's 2 minutes to, I will roll us to the finish of this call, unless anyone else has anything they want to say before I wrap us up.
No, thank you.
Great. And so first of all, just want to say thank you so much to Delphine and Brian from Global Affairs Canada.
Thank you, guys.
Also, Heather had noted before, you guys are our first government guests. So we are hoping that you have set the bar high, and we look forward to future seeing whether or not those future governments that possibly come onto this call can hit the level that you've hit. So we are grateful, and thank you so much. I also want to say thank you to all the participants that have come today and asked questions. A couple of things for you folks to make note of. First of all, we have actually put out a Data Literacy Consortium website. That link is in under the What's Next. So if you guys could take a look at that, we would be super grateful. Any feedback you might have, you can send to us. Next week, in the flavor of governments, we are having the first Data Literacy Consortium face-to-face event at the OGP Summit in Ottawa. It is the OGP Unconference on Making Data Work for Open Governments. I will be lead facilitator for that, and I am busy right now designing the agenda. We currently have 70 RSVPs for that, so I am very much looking forward to that running. If you are in Ottawa for the OGP Summit, please do come. You do need to RSVP. The other thing I want to point out is our next Data Consortium call will be Tuesday, June 25th at 10 Eastern Time, 1400 UTC. Please mark your calendars. We will have more details forthcoming, but Data for Leaders, hoping people will find a lot of value out of that. And also keep a look in your inbox, anybody that has checked off that you're interested in getting further information about the Data Literacy Consortium. We are going to be starting an announce/discussion list where we will be posting all the updates to folks. If you haven't noticed right now, I'm using VCC for everybody. And so we're going to be moving off of that and having a place where we can announce stuff, but also where you can announce stuff as well. So look for that in your inbox. We'll be setting that up in the next couple of days. And with that, I just want to say thank you and goodbye. Hope your journeys in data literacy continue and that you continue to let us know about it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Keep on sharing.
Keep sharing. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye, thank you.